Welcome to the FiveStack. We love to bring people on that we respect. I got a text this morning. We usually run over the 5 most important stories of the day saying, "Hey, Dean, I've got Professor Terrence Goggin, West Point professor, historian, maybe one of the sharpest minds in America when it comes to looking at what's going on with a sober lens, through a sober lens." And I'm like, no way, he's one of my favorites. Then we get on just prior to the show, and Mr. Goggin's like, "I've read your stuff," and I almost had a heart attack. I'm like, "Oh my God, this Substack community is incredible. Welcome to the show, Professor Goggin. I cannot believe you read my drivel. Thank you very much."
I enjoy it. It has a certain, what would I say, class to it. It's classic. I like that.
Which class? Everyone knows Professor Goggin from the West Point History Professor Substack, which is a great read. You've done some terrific investigations into a bunch of things, and you do seminars because you're used to doing that. You're a professor at West Point, amongst other things. Before you're also a legislator. A former legislator in California, and you also ran for Congress. So you've got an idea about politics, you've got an idea about history, and you've got a good intake on what's going on in the military.
That's right. I have a trifecta there. Yes. Politics, the military, and history.
And you've also investigated Jeffrey Epstein, which we'll get to in a minute or two, because I think it's interesting to get your take on whether he was murdered or not, which is a particular interest of mine. But before we get there, we should probably stick to the top 5, Dean, and get into it today. And then we can bring in Professor Goggin at number 5.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. 5 of the biggest stories of the day. Professor Terrence Goggin, he's a historian. He is a very, very bright man. He wrote an incredible piece, and I want to draw everybody's attention to it before we get started, because everybody's amped up in the United States of America. I'd even extend that out to the free world at this point in time, because Donald Trump is running a train on democracy in the United States. The fascist leanings, the comparisons to Hitler. And if you go to Terrence Goggin's West Point History Professor Substack, he wrote an absolutely incredible piece that I read this morning when I woke up. So fortuitous that you sent it to me and said he was going to be on the FiveStack today. Amid collapsing polls, a nefarious plan to seize dictatorial power emerges. And this is the hopeful part. And I think a lot of people could use a little hope today, Professor. It won't work. It's missing key ingredients. Why don't we start there, and we'll work our way down if you can. Go through this with us. What are the ingredients he's missing, and why are you convinced in your wisdom that this guy's not popular enough to do what he wants to do?
Well, let's start with popularity. Hitler in 1933 was exploiting the German depression. He was exploiting the frustration of the millions of veterans from World War I who had been left out of any kind of economic boom after 1919 peace. And so there was a lot of massive unemployment, and he raised a militia called the SA, which was made up of veterans, all experienced combat veterans, who became a very powerful, almost uncontrolled, violent force in the politics of Germany in the early 1930s and late 1920s. So he was riding a crest of violent support. It wasn't peaceful at all. And he actually intimidated the aristocracy and the establishment that had elected President von Hindenburg in the 1932 election. But in 1932, Hindenburg won by double digits against Hitler. Hitler ran for president and lost by double digits. Then, within a year, Hindenburg made him chancellor. And how did he do that? How was that accomplished? It was accomplished by actually combining the industrialists and the aristocracy and the establishment fear of communists. The Communist Party was a great fear of theirs. And so he was able to exploit that and say, yes, I have a minority number of seats in the parliament, but you have enough to make me chancellor. Why don't we combine forces? And they were very reluctant to do that. They feared him as much as they should have. But they they hated the communists. They were desperately afraid of the communists, and therefore he was able to combine forces with them. But they insisted on controlling his cabinet, and he was given only 3 seats in the cabinet, but he got control of the police. And out of a 9-member cabinet, he was 1/3 only. So that continued for 27 days. And then he came up with the violent act of blowing up the Reichstag, burning it down, gutting it, and blaming it on the communists. And he panicked the Hindenburg, the president. He panicked the industrialists, and they put their votes together with his to pass something called the Enabling Act, which gave him totalitarian powers. He didn't need the Reichstag anymore, didn't need parliament anymore. He could rule the country. Now, those are interesting elements. But the most important element I didn't discuss, and that was he cut a secret deal with the German army behind the scenes. If he had not cut that deal, the German army would not have allowed Hindenburg, who was their man, basically, was a war hero and field marshal and all that. They would not have allowed him to bless Hitler as the chancellor. So he had to get the German army on their side. And he got that by doing 2 things. One, promising a blank check to rearm, and secondly, to get the militia leadership assassinated. They had to be all killed. That's what the German army wanted. And Hitler agreed to that. And so they joined him, and they told the president to appoint him chancellor, and then they even supported the Enabling Act, which allowed him to rule with totalitarian power, because he agreed to put the SA under the control of the army. Now, all of these factors, which are very complicated, and I lay out in some detail, don't exist in this country. I mean, we don't have the kind of fear in this country of the Communist Party. There is no organized opposition like the communists challenging our way of life the way it was in Germany. That is number one, that doesn't exist. Number two, we don't have a military that would enforce or support a dictatorship like Hitler had. They wouldn't put up with that. I know the military very well, and they are a priesthood. They are committed absolutely to the Constitution. They've defended the Constitution since 1775. If you notice, the flags that are in the White House in the Oval Office behind President Trump, there's one flag, which is the United States Army flag, that says 1775 on it. The Army predates the Declaration of Independence in its establishment. And that is very significant for the Army. And I taught there at West Point, it's inculcated into the Corps of Cadets that they are a sacred priesthood with the trust of the country that they will defend the Constitution. And one of the most moving portraits that exist, and it's in the Capitol, is the portrait of Washington handing his commission back to the Congress after the victory at Yorktown in 1783. He could have become dictator. He could have become king. His officer corps wanted him to do something like that, and he was so enraged when they proposed that he actually slammed his fist so hard down on the table that it broke the table. That's how mad he was. And he said that you are committed to the Congress. You will do as they say. They not.
Oh no, losing some of your audio there. Oops.
With the
there you go. You're back.
With the Corps of Cadets, even to this day. And there's no way that Donald Trump can overcome that sacred trust. Mm-hmm. And finally, I think that the most important thing right now is for us to realize that this is a passing phenomenon. Trump is I call it a stormy weather I mean, it's not a destructive thing that will sink our ship, but it's going to be rough weather. We have to put on our foul weather gear, so to speak, and get
Mm,
through this. And
mm.
we have to focus on the next elections. Only elections will turn this around, and that's 2026 and 2028. And so that's what we have to focus on, and not get distracted by Trump's outrageous statements, because that's what all they are. They're just statements. He doesn't have the power to enforce the type of things he wants to do. If you
You,
start
you,
thinking about it, how is he going to do what he wants to do? He wants to control thought. He wants to control speech. None of that can happen because we're not Germany. We're not Hungary. We're not Russia. We're very, very different.
Professor, you're very reassuring in some ways, calling this stormy weather, but for many of us, it's very terrifying, looking at the things he's saying, his position towards Europe and Russia, how he's pulling back forces along the Eastern European Russian border as Russia, starts probing whether he can attack Estonia and Poland and other countries. You yourself have said that he is following Hitler's playbook day by day. You say that he's deliberately following Hitler's playbook. Um, do you think he's attempting to try and do this Hitler playbook, like his conversation yesterday at the Charlie Kirk, or his speech yesterday at the Charlie Kirk Memorial? He seems to be blaming the left in the way that Hitler would have blamed the communists. He seems to be talking about, even today, I
Antifa,
think
yeah.
Antifa will be banned today, or not banned, in terms of a terror organization today. These are the kinds of things you would imagine Hitler would have done about the communists in trying to, sort of consolidate power with these other right-wing parties around the Reichstag to fire.
Well, I'd be more worried that he could enforce his viewpoints if he was popular. If he was popular with, say, 60% of the vote of this country. But I showed in my graphs the other day in my post that not only is he not popular, he is the least popular president in the history of the United States at this stage of their term in office. And the only rival he has to that is his own presidency, which was in 2014, 2021. So he's not popular. And if you're not popular in this country, you have to be more than just marginally a little bit ahead of the other guy. We're 350 million people. You can't enforce your viewpoint. This is it's a fantasy that
Wasn't
Trump is
Hitler
very
also
famous for having fantasies. What?
Hitler was also only a minority, as you point out in your article. Was only had a
Yeah, but he
30
was really,
something
really
percent.
popular.
Was he?
No,
Oh yeah, yeah.
there's a difference though. See, what Hitler had was he lost the election against Hindenburg. But what he was able to do is exploit the fear of the Communist Party to bring the conservatives on board. That's not what Trump has. He doesn't have a communist party in this country, organized secret army, secret cells, the way the communists had infiltrated the German Weimar Republic. I mean, they were a real threat. That doesn't exist. The liberals are liberals. I mean, and they got all sorts of different views. They're certainly not organized. They don't have a leader. They don't have secret cells. They don't have a secret army. That's a completely different situation that Hitler was able to exploit. And that's one of the reasons he got the army on his side, because the army feared the communist movement as well. So the other thing that Hitler had was the PSA, which was an armed militia, and it was disciplined because they were all veterans of the World War I, so they knew what they were doing, and they were a big threat, and the army didn't like them, and they needed to suppress them. It was only by cutting a deal with Hitler that they would do that, and that's why they backed Hitler to get rid of the SA leadership, which they did in what's called the Night of the Long Knives, where they were all assassinated at the same time. So it's a completely different situation. Uh, but they are following this playbook. But that doesn't mean because you have the cookbook in front of you that you know how to make the cake. And they certainly don't know how to make the cake because they don't have the tools to do it. They don't have the essay. They don't have the military behind them. They don't have a villain that isn't organized and that the public fears. They have various different views of the country, and particularly the Christian right that wants to make this country the way it was at the beginning of the founding of the republic, where it was all white Protestant leaders. Well, actually, that's not even true. The kind of country that they conceive of as white Protestant country didn't exist in 1775 or 1789, because we had Native Americans, we had Spanish, we had French, we had Roman Catholics in Maryland. We had a very diverse population, including, of course, the freemen who had been slaves, and also the slaves themselves. So it was a very diverse country. It's never going to go back and be some sort of white Protestant fantastic imagination. That's just not going to happen. And but they want to make it happen. But that doesn't mean it will happen. It means that they're going to try. But there have been all sorts of movements in this country, religious political movements in this country over the last 250 years. And they've all tried in their own ways to get the country to go along with them, and have failed. So I'm not too fearful of that. And we're not like Europe. We're not Hungary. We're not like Russia. These countries, both Russia and Hungary, have a very short history, if they had any history at all, of democracy. We've had 250 years of democracy. It's going to be very, very difficult to overcome.
So, Professor Goggin, Terrence Goggin, by the way, West Point professor, is where you can find him on Substack. He is such a breath of fresh air. This is so encouraging and reassuring to have a conversation with someone like you that is an expert in world history, in military history, understands, as you point out, how the cake is made, and that Trump doesn't have the ingredients to make his MAGA fascist cake. But you said something, and I don't want to take up much more of your time, but you said something that was very interesting right off the top. He does not have the support of the Army. He does not have a support of the U.S. Armed Forces. I know you have conversations with people, and obviously being as steeped in military tradition and as proud as you are to be the human being that you are, that has the knowledge that you have, being a professor at West Point, the military history you have. Do you have conversations with people that currently serve about hypothetical situations? Because we had a conversation about Greenland the other day, Canada the other day. You know, we're on high alert here in Canada. I think there are a bunch of people, including Greenland, on high alert as well. You're seeing, the interdiction of, foreign interference, specifically here in Alberta, in Greenland, et cetera, et cetera. But hypothetically, those conversations that you have, is there any pushback, or are this just a group of men and women who are fiercely apolitical, because Trump is also trying to poison that well as well? If you watched his West Point address, where he said, only if you're loyal to Trump, you get to sit behind me, and if not, you got to bug off. What are those conversations like that you have? Is it yeah, this guy's just full of shit, or is it yeah, if we have to, we will stand up?
Well, I can't really discuss my private conversations with my friends in the military. I'm not interested in doing that right now. However, I will say a couple of things. Number one, the West Point address was a very significant address for Trump, because every president of the United States in recent memory have addressed the graduates at West Point at one time or another in their term. And he was the only president that did not hand out the diplomas to the individual graduates as they accepted their commissions. And there was a reason for that, because the Corps cadets and their leadership had privately told the faculty and the superintendent and commandant of West Point that their classmates did not want to shake Trump's hand. And they did not want to shake his hand because he was a convicted felon 35 times over. And their pledge is duty, honor, country. And they did not feel he was an honorable person. And that any cadet who would shake his hand would be not following the honor code, which is, I will not tolerate anybody who lies, cheats, or steals, and I will not support them. And I will not shake their hand or do anything else to indicate my support of them. They made that very clear.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's huge.
To try to get out of the problem, the cadets said they were willing to salute him because he was the commander-in-chief, and they would salute the office, but they wouldn't shake his hand, unlike every other president. So the military decided, well, this was not going to be a very good scene, whether not shaking his hand would be noticed. So they convinced the president to leave early. He had another engagement. So he gave his speech and left before the diplomas were handed out. And so everybody was relieved. The staff was relieved. The cadets were relieved. The families could focus on the cadets and the wonderful achievement of the cadets. And they didn't have to deal with this angry bear that interfered with graduation. And that's really what it was. Now, that tells you a lot about the military.
There's so many people in the chat here. We deal in doom and gloom far too much, Professor Goggin, and the relief that you're giving so many people right now, because behind certain doors, when it comes to MAGA and the Trumpification of the United States of America, there's a lot of silence. But to the duty, honor, country, and to know that the spine of what makes America great, what has always made it great, which is the men and women who've sacrificed so much and continue to still abide by their sacred oath. And that is an incredible bombshell story, to be honest with you. Thank you very much for sharing that with us, Professor. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been published before, but it hasn't been given the attention that it should have been given, because people don't understand that the military, particularly the military the military leadership that goes through the academies of the Air Force and the Navy and the Army at West Point, they assume a certain role in life. They're not looking to make a lot of money. They're not looking for great glory, but they are looking to support the country, to serve the country. And that's a dedication. It's like a priesthood. And I remember being taught that in a way by the head of the Department of Social Sciences my first few months at the academy when I was a freshman instructor there. He was a colonel who was actually had been a general during World War II and chief of plans for Eisenhower on the Normandy invasion. And he gave up being a general and became a colonel because you couldn't head the Department of Social Sciences at West Point unless you were a colonel. So he went down to being a colonel. And he would tell stories to his young faculty members coming in about those times. And he said, we are Stoics. We are priests. We are here for one purpose and one purpose only. And that is to defend the country. And we are pledging our lives and our sacred honor to do that. And if you're not interested in doing that, you're not welcome here, period. So that's the first step, and that's the first thing cadets understand. And it goes throughout their career. There are certain exceptions, there are certain black sheep, but this is something that is almost universal. It's an amazing thing.
That is a very encouraging thought, and hopefully, your sentiment there that the military will stand up to any dictatorial intentions by Trump is true. Professor Goggin, I want to thank you so much for joining us in the FiveStack today. We should do this for a lot longer period of time and really spend some time digging into your memory there.
I could talk to Professor Goggin forever. I want to call this guy when we're done and go, what about this? What about that?
We should do an evening session where we just go on for a couple of hours. I'm sure we'll find a lot of interesting information.
Q&A, yeah. We'll see if maybe we should do some Q&A. Professor, would you be interested in doing that? The interaction here and the people that you're comforting is absolutely incredible.
Sure. I'd be happy to do it.
We'll set that up then.
I'm enjoying this part of my life a lot. I started with Substack here about 6 months ago, and it's been a great experience.
Oh, it's awesome.
Great.
Everybody should go and subscribe. The West Point history professor, Terrence Goggin. He's got a 2-parter out. Go and read Amid Collapsing Poles, a nefarious plan to seize dictatorial power emerges. It won't work. It's missing key ingredients. It is one hell of a read. And it also let me in on the fact that the latest polling numbers for Donald Trump are a disaster. He's got a 33% approval rating. That in itself is great news today. Thank you, Professor. Great to meet you. Thank you so much for taking time with us today.
You're welcome.
Talk to you soon.
Professor. Cheers.
Professor Terrence Goggin. That guy, he's a legend, dude. He's a legend. I can't believe that. And you know, it blows my mind, this community, Substack community, because we just talked to a guy that I read, for intel, backstory, context, as much as humanly possible. And you send me a text where like, Professor Goggin's coming on. And I'm like, oh my fucking God. Yeah.
I've been trying to get him on for since I first encountered him, which is about 6 months ago. And, he's his first Substack Live. We had to walk him through how to do a Substack Live before he got on the air here. Because he's just
his first?
It's his first time ever. He's never done one of these things
God.
before. I'm sure he'll be prolific after this. But,
there'll be no stopping him now. Like,
because he's terrific. I love he's like central casting of a professor. He's the perfect guy,
Hey, can we just wrap that real quick?
Yeah.
Everybody take heart.
Yeah.
Right? There's a bunch of stuff Trump doesn't want you to know. What he doesn't want you to know is that no one's on board.
Yeah.
Like, the people that matter, the people that make America work, the people that really protect America, no one's on board. What an amazing, folks. Go and give that man a follow. Give him a paid sub if you want. Follow him for free. Share his content today. The West Point history professor. That's where you're going to find him. Really appreciate you doing that. Thanks, pal. That was incredible.
And we should definitely do a Q&A with him at some point because I could talk to him forever. He's really, really fascinating.
Yeah.
Let's get into the top 5 today. Trump will designate Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization, just as federal investigators confirm they found zero connections between Charlie Kirk's alleged killer and any left-wing groups, exposing how the administration is creating enemies where none exist. NBC News confirmed that they spoke to 3 federal sources that despite intense pressure to find organizational ties after Kirk's assassination, the suspect, Tyler Robinson, has no links to Antifa or any left-leaning political groups. In fact, his parents are Republicans and his father is a diehard MAGA. So there's a big question around why the administration feels it's time to declare Antifa a terror organization.
Do we need to really kind of revise that answer? It's the same answer. It's the same one that Terrence Goggin just gave you. It's the same one we come up with every time where you're like, why is he trying so hard to frame the left? If you watched, and I'm not having a war with people on Twitter, but I definitely am getting a lot of heat for a post that I put up as 1 million people, well over 1 million people that have taken issue with it. I loved it, and it really kind of breathes life into this conversation a little bit. But I watched a political death cult rally this weekend when I consumed anything Charlie Kirk Memorial related, with the exception of his lovely wife, who forgave the shooter and said, you can't fight hate with hate. And shortly after she did that, it was like 3.5 hours of like a death cult hate rally, where you had Stephen Miller Goebbels literally stealing 2 Joseph Goebbels speeches, one about the storm and another one about you will have nothing and like it and you've unleashed dragons. If the fucking president is a dragon, that's kind of awesome, though. And then, of course, we had the same rhetoric from Trump. The bullet that hit Charlie was meant for you. We're coming after the left-wing lunatics, something about tariffs in Chicago. And then you had, the RFK. I mean, let's just going into it. It was the disaster we knew it would be. Then they also made tens of millions of dollars from donations that weekend, where they sold T-shirts and bracelets yesterday. I don't know if anybody is aware of that. And it was presented as literally an evangelical kind of come to Jesus rally, where they were walking around with clipboards saying Charlie Kirk would want you to become a member of the Grand Old Party. You should sign up here. Give us your email address. Great. Thanks very much. Here's your card. Like, it was data capture. It was a political rally. It was a death cult rally. But to that point, the entire purpose of this was today, where Donald Trump's like, Antifa, we're going to label them a domestic terror entity. That's what the entire death cult rally pointed to yesterday, and it happened today. Problem he's going to have is there's nobody in Antifa. There are no organizers. Just a bunch of fucking weird patchouli eating people that that gather on the web and then smoke some dope, and then they go and create problems. They think they're getting into good trouble. There's no founder. There's no bank account. There's no nothing, because it is just an ideology. It's a movement. It's loosely based in hating fascists. That started in the 1920s. But I'm not going to give you a history lesson. We'll bring Professor Terrence Goggin back for that history lesson. But everything that you saw when it came to the weaponization of the life and death of Charlie Kirk pointed to today, which was the idea that Trump needs a new commie movement. It's Antifa, my friends. And what is going to be Antifa? I mean, they're not going to define it, because ambiguity is really important when you're trying to literally go after your political enemies or people who think differently than you. That's what that announcement was today. That is what the entire funeral service was meant to gin up and get people to buy into a holy war that they need to go after Antifa. And I'll tell you what, it worked. It absolutely worked.
The professor was interesting because he talked about the Reichstag fire as being instigated by Hitler and his Nazi movement. Now that, of course, wasn't known until well after the fact. They did the fire in order to blame the communists for the fire, and that did work.
So we call it false flag.
We call it indeed a false flag, which makes you think about this whole Kirk assassination in that mindset. If you're thinking about it that way, it's being very useful in a way to the Trump MAGA movement to be able to label it as something of the left wing, to be able to blame it on this mythical Antifa. Of course, there's no evidence to support any of this, but in some ways it doesn't really matter as long as they can make the connection. They've launched investigations now in the Department of Justice, looking into everyone from George Soros down to every major left-leaning organization in America, trying to connect the dots of what they will deem a network that supports this Antifa movement, that supports, violent protests, that supports political violence and extremism. And they will try, in the minds of at least viewers or Americans, they will try to create this idea that they're facing a monolith foreign entity that is trying to destroy America, that is the liberal left wing. It doesn't exist, but the Kirk assassination has been a useful way for them to push that.
And very convenient, right? I mean, you could say without any proof whatsoever that this sure feels like a Reichstag fire moment in the United States, because the framing of the death of Charlie Kirk not only was a financial boon for Turning Point USA, not only was a major distraction from the Epstein files and the abandonment of the Ukraine and the EU, it not only covers up the idea that Trump's 33% approval rating is not just a disaster, it's a fucking 12-alarm blaze within the Republican Party itself right now. But here's the thing, is they have gone the extra mile to lie with impunity and no proof. I did a little piece this weekend. I ran some numbers and actually did some research on right-wing violence versus reality. It was stunning what we came up with. Let me just give you some fucking numbers. This is a fact. I mean, I'm not making any of this stuff up. I've cited it, sourced it, researched it. Here's the catch. Since 2011, almost every single ideologically motivated extremist violent action was committed by right-wing actors responsible for the dominant share of U.S. extremist plots and attacks. 1994 to 2020, right-wing 57%, left-wing 25%, 15% is other, whatever other is. Maybe the libertarians got their own little violent movement, I don't know. In 2018, 50 extremist-related murders, 49 were right-wing. 2020 to 2021, it gets worse. 9 in 10 extremist murders were right-wing. Right-wing, 9 in 10. That's 90% in 2020, 2021. This is when Joe Biden took office and all the righties got angry. That's when all the righties started killing people. 2022, 25 of 25 extremist-related murders. 100% in 2022. Right-wing. Last decade overall, 3 out of 4 extremist-related murders were committed by right-wing actors, 90% male. Here's the demographic. Usually average age is early to mid-30s, majority white, all far-right, all shared some type of perverse, traditional, evangelical, or extremist ideology or came from a family that espoused those views. Those numbers are bulletproof. I'm not making any of them up. You can go and read this.
No, I
It's on
believe
my
that. I believe
Substack.
that. And they're extreme numbers, but and people should look at it at deepblooddel.substack.com because that is remarkable research and it points to everything that we know to be true. I mean, if you've covered the news for a long time, you know that right-wing extremist violence dwarfs anything on the left. But it's interesting that, when it comes to the Tyler Robinson story, they are determined to make him a left-leaning person. And there isn't zero evidence of that.
NBC, MSNBC, CBS, ABC, every major news outlet, Axios, AP, Canadian Press, every major news outlet worth their salt put out a story this last weekend, to your point, that effectively said, and I'm paraphrasing, no matter how hard the Trump administration and the regime has tried, there is still zero evidence. Law enforcement has found zero evidence of any online or IRL connection between anything left-wing and Tyler Robinson.
And I did my own investigation this weekend looking into the text messages that he and his alleged boyfriend were exchanging. There's extensive messages which seem to read like a confession by Tyler Robinson. He starts off by saying there's a note under the keyboard. That note was subsequently burnt by the boyfriend, so we don't really sure how real that note was or whether it really contained Tyler Robinson's things. But the fascinating thing for me about those text messages is they happened supposedly in between him jumping off that rooftop at the university, and in the 18 or so minutes that happened after that, while he's trying to run away from the scene, and he writes about all these things that hadn't even happened yet. He writes about the fact that another old crazy guy had been arrested when that didn't emerge until, at least 12:50, many, many minutes after that arrest took place.
Did you see the geography of where this alleged killer was perched and how far away he was from the crazy old guy that's like, it was me, I did it?
Yeah. I didn't see the geography of that, but no.
They're like hundreds of yards away in a crowd of tens of thousands of people. So,
and he talks about the rifle being, photos of the rifle being shown and by police or released by police. They didn't show that until the next day or even later. It's unclear exactly what time they actually released photos of the actual rifle. So, he keeps referring to these things in the moment, which is only these 18 minutes after he has apparently shot Charlie Kirk, which haven't even happened yet. They're things that are not happening. And he's also got situational awareness of where the police are patrolling, where the squad cars are, how much of the side of town they'd cordoned off. How would you ever know that if you were trying to escape at the scene by yourself?
A lot of space to cover in a short period of time.
And while traveling 3.5 hours away, he's trying to run away back home 3.5 hours away. The whole logic of this whole thing has fallen apart completely, which leads you back to this idea of, is this a false flag, or do we really have a clue who killed Charlie Kirk, or are we just basically saying it's this guy because that's what the FBI says we have to believe?
I'm a fan of facts. So far, all I know is that it sounds like Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk. I've seen a lot of forensic evidence that would argue otherwise. I've seen a lot of forensic evidence that would argue it wasn't one person. I've seen a lot of conspiracy theories about this country, this leader, that reason, the two-shooter theory. I've seen it all. I mean, the conspiracies around this. But hey, the one thing that I won't discount, I'm not a conspiracy guy, as you know. The one thing I won't discount is that Charlie Kirk's death was a boon for MAGA, a boon for distracting you from Donald Trump's felonious assault on the United States of America. This also created not just a super cult, but it brought together so many factions that were splintered over the Epstein files, didn't want a war president, was angry that he didn't end the war in Ukraine. And you attach that anger over Charlie Kirk. You invent a narrative, okay? And you drive that narrative home with no proof, and you do it for 2 weeks. And you got the visual of this guy being shot. And then you go back to playing the same old hits, which is, hey, that bullet that hit Charlie was meant for you. You go back to, they're after you, but I'm standing in the way. You go back to that old rhetoric. And you've now got a whole bunch of people who were pissed off with you. And the reason why you've got a 33% approval rating, and you've also got a nuclear distraction that works, but you have all those people coming back into the mega tent. So, if you want to talk about who benefits, which is really macabre to talk about, everybody on that stage this weekend at his memorial service, which literally turned into a political rally / death cult, it benefited all of them.
Absolutely. The number 4 story of the countdown is a breaking news story. Jimmy Kimmel is set to return to Jimmy Kimmel Live on ABC starting tomorrow night, September the 23rd, following a 1-week suspension after his controversial remarks about Charlie Kirk's assassination. Disney and ABC announced that just a short while ago that they've had thoughtful conversations with Jimmy Kimmel and the show will resume production. The network stated the initial suspension was to avoid further inflaming a tense situation at an emotional moment for our country, citing Kimmel's comments as ill-timed and thus insensitive. The return decision followed intense media coverage, industry debates, and pressure from regulatory bodies and affiliate groups. But there you go. Kimmel returns Tuesday night, September the 23rd, to ABC News.
Whatever. I mean, at first it was in poor taste, and then it was, he didn't know who killed Charlie Kirk, and he said it was one of their own, and then it was, he's Antifa, and this is all by affiliates like Sinclair, Nexstar, the major mega donors that own all those networks. Disney stays quiet. Everybody starts canceling their Disney / Hulu accounts, right? People start showing up to the Disney offices. People start protesting and stop buying Disney stuff. All of a sudden, Disney is now, well, we've had some thoughtful conversations. We just wanted to kind of put it on ice for a bit. We're always going to bring them back. I mean, it goes against everything and every narrative they try to curate about why they put them on ice in the first place. What a fucking joke.
The tanking stock price and the amount of people boycotting Disney may have had an impact on that. Maybe not. But certainly the public outcry has been pretty enormous, and they had no choice but to return him. It still says it doesn't look good for the Disney management that they were so quick.
There's such a bunch of fucking losers. And they bent the knee to the dickhead, right? Yeah. And so now that this dickhead's going to come back. That's what bullies do. I can't remember who I was talking to the other day, but it was just at a conversation. We're talking about bullies. A bully will come to your house, beat the shit out of you, take your money, and you'll give it to him. You give it to him, guess what he's going to do? He's not going to go, thanks for the money, I'm going to go beat someone else up. He's going to keep coming back to your house, and pretty soon your sister's impregnated, your dog's missing, and your entire piggy bank is gone. So, and I think I speak for a lot of people when I say this in terms of, the chilling effect it had on free speech. Fuck you, Disney and ABC. And I'll tell you why. Because you have so many institutions, educational institutions, other networks, people, individuals, lobby groups, the LGBTQ movement that is not moved, that just won't budge when it comes to this asshole. And you did. And you have billions of dollars in the Hip City Bank, and you budged. You lost. And I can't, on another note, dude, I don't want your opinion as a CBS former producer on CBS. Why would Kimmel do this? Why would he go back? He has them dead to rights with a lawsuit that if he filed a lawsuit on the merit that what he said was true, the due diligence you'd have to do, right? To figure out whether or not one of MAGA's killed their own, and the kind of money that Jimmy Kimmel has and the people that would pump money into a lawsuit and an investigation could be an Epstein Files light problem for Donald Trump.
It could be. But, Kimmel is getting his platform back. He gets a big platform back. He likes being on the air. It'll be a big boost for his ratings. And at the end of the day, you can't really fault ABC for coming to their right senses, because they did come to their senses. It may have taken them a few weeks to understand the environment and the zeitgeist and where people's heads were at, but they did do the right thing at the end in returning him to the air. And by all accounts, the conversations were broad inside ABC News. The things I've been hearing is that these conversations, while the top leadership were initially quite reactive to and banned him, or at least suspended him, there was a lot of resistance inside the rank and file of ABC and Disney, and middle managers and senior managers were putting up a lot of resistance in trying to get Kimmel back, and that all worked at the end of the day. That says a lot of good things about Disney. And also, in the background of all of this is what Ellison is trying to do with consolidating all the media. The tanking stock price, the people boycotting Disney was not actually putting Disney in a good position. It made them even more of a target for takeover by Ellison and Oracle. So, I think at the end of the day, these people are human. They make decisions. It's very rare for them to backtrack in the way that they have, and they have done it here. That's, to me, actually speaks good things about Disney. And
you trying to get a job at Disney? Is that what you're doing?
Disney's never going to hire me, but I think I understand these guys. I understand these people in management positions. So much is riding on every decision they make. The stock price could tank. Lots of things can happen in just one single decision. And they did the right thing here in bringing Kimmel back. And I for one, am glad that we got, we can't get rid of all these comics that are doing late night satire against this president, because it's part of what happens in a free society. It's part of how we share our thoughts, and it's how we critique the regime, and it's important that it continues day in, day out.
Yeah, it's how we bring levity to really dark times too, right? That's always been the job of pundits and comedians, and it also is the reason why there's no free media in Russia, because a comedian upset Vladimir Putin in 2001 with a skit that portrayed Vladimir Putin as a crying baby. Yeah. And that guy fell out of a fucking window. Shock.
And they didn't change that decision. They kept,
Oh, yeah. There's no bringing him back from where they sent him.
Not if you're falling out of windows. The number 2 story, I think it's number 2, maybe it's number 3. Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, allegedly accepted $50,000 in cash from undercover FBI agents in a 2024 sting operation.
Normally the story of the year.
Yeah.
But there's other things.
Caught on video stuffing money into a bag in exchange for promises to steer immigration contracts. On video, stuffing money into a bag.
Brown bag.
Yeah, the Trump DOJ killed the investigation in September, citing insufficient evidence despite the recordings. And these guys were FBI agents, so they're not it's not some just plain video.
Did you see Levitt today when she was asked about it?
I didn't see what you said. What did she say?
Oh, yeah, fucking MAGA Barbie standing there, and they're like, a report came out this weekend that there is FBI video evidence of border czar Tom Homan stuffing $50,000 in cash in a bag in return for an ICE contract prior to Trump, because he knew he was going to be the border czar. So what he was doing is going around, he's like, "Hey, you want a deal? You want a sweet government contract? You're going to have to give me $50,000 and I'll introduce you to the boss. Yeah. You want a sweet? You build fences? Yeah. Give me $50,000, $100,000. I'll take it to the boss. But you got to go through me first. Literally, they have him dead to rights." So he gets elected. Yeah, it's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
He gets elected. Trump gets elected. FBI's like, okay, we saw him take the money, but we don't know if the people that gave him the money actually got the contracts. When they had ascertained that happened, they then approached the Trump regime and the DOJ, and they're like, yeah, so your border czar, this video's not great. Here's what he was doing. So just letting you know, we're going to have to charge him. Donald Trump got wind of this. Apparently, he was shown the video, and he just squashed it. He's like, no, forget it. We're not insufficient evidence. It's a cover-up on top of... I mean, listen, if we're not familiar with the Trump cover-up routine, this is it. He finds out what goes on, fires a bunch of people, or he just says, yeah, we're not following that up anymore. And what Tom Homan did, multiple times, by the way, not just once. Oh, yeah. Multiple times.
Jeez.
What Tom Homan did is taking a bribe. It is selling the United States of America to people that he can sell the United States of America with. And I have no idea how much money he made, But that guy big dicks people every single day, walks around telling everybody this is law and order, and if you commit a crime in the United States, we're deporting you. When do we deport fucking Tom Homan?
The corruption is unbelievable. And the fact that it's allowed to continue is beyond reproach. Now, of course, it makes sense. I've got a story up on narrative.org today about about to be up, about the $10 billion that the Trump family has now made of crypto. $10 billion since they took office. That kind of corruption is unthinkable. But of course, if you're committing that kind of corruption, where your 19-year-old, by the way, Barron Trump is now worth $150 million based on crypto. He's 19. I mean, how did he make this money? So, we're committing that kind of corruption, and it's on a scale where it's in the billions. How? Of course, your border czar who's just on the take for $50,000 here and there. Well, you got to let him off because, why should you?
Do you know how many people he's done this for? By the way,
How many? No,
I don't have a running tally, but I can't remember the number. I think it was like $13 billion in restitution for people that Trump pardoned over the first 9 months of his administration.
How many?
13 billion. 13 billion. Securities commissions, fraud. Like he's been pardoning as many rich criminal assholes as humanly possible. Lev and I talked about it in the weekend roundup, and he kind of let me in on what happens. You gather all the worst criminals, the financial criminals in the United States.
Yeah.
They have a problem that they want you to solve. In return for solving that problem, pardons, and not having to pay restitution, hundreds of millions, maybe billions. You take a little off the top for the mob boss, and you go and do his bidding whenever he needs you to do it. You fill up the fucking money coffers whenever he tells you to do it. And that's the trick. That's the routine. So when it comes to Tom Homan, 50 grand, he's like, whatever, 50 grand. I've stolen 10 billion since I've been in office. Let's make sure we cover him too. It is the most corrupt regime in the history of the United States, and it's not even close. And it is so fucking brazen right now, Zev.
It is really unbelievable. And the number one story relates to all of this. Trump has fired a U.S. attorney who refused to prosecute James Comey and New York AG Letitia James without evidence. Then publicly ordered Attorney General Pam Bondi to prosecute his political enemies while threatening critics with racketeering charges. So the president has declared his targets guilty as hell on social media, directing DOJ to find prosecutors who will bring charges regardless of evidence. Former prosecutors say this unprecedented interference turns the Justice Department into a weapon against political opponents. Well, of course it does. But there you go. It just threads the needle there that his guys, they get let off. Letitia James Comey, with his zero evidence, are still to be targeted by his newly appointed attorney.
Can't find evidence, fires the person for not finding evidence, hires someone else to find evidence, still can't find evidence when he's got a fucking video of his border czar accepting $50,000 bribes. It's fascinating. Listen, I'm going to read you a tweet, and then we'll wrap it up and let everybody get on with their day. The threat that you talk about, where he's ordering Pam Bondi to go after Schiff, go after Comey, et cetera, could have just been an email. Aaron Parnas did some incredible reporting, and I mean it. Hang on a second. I got to get it for you. Trump.
It could have been a conversation you wouldn't have admitted to having under normal circumstances. The things you do on this aside in secret, but
could have been an email, dude. Like
could have been an email.
It's true, and I'll tell you why it could have been an email. Because according to White House insiders, this is Aaron Parnas' incredible reporting, Parnas' perspective, Lev's kid, that he meant to send this to her as a direct message, but which is why. I'm gonna read this to you. Instead, he put it out on Truth Social. Pam, he says, that was my first indicator. Like, oops, he thought he was sending a direct message. Pam, I've reviewed over 30 statements and posts saying that essentially same old story as last time. All talk, no action. Nothing's being done. What about Comey? Adam Shifty Shift. Letitia. They're all guilty as hell, but nothing's being done. Then we almost put a Democrat-supported U.S. attorney in Virginia with a really bad Republican past, a woke rhino who was never going to do his job. That's why two of the worst Dem senators pushed him so hard. He even lied to the media and said he quit. And we had no case. no, I fired him, and there's a great case. Fucking guy, career prosecutor. He's like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And many layers, legal pundits say so. It's the many.
This
It's
guy was a
yeah, a lot of
MAGA appointed guy.
yeah,
He's
yeah,
like
yeah.
he's
He's a
deep
Trump
MAGA.
sycophant. He's like, listen,
Yeah.
I tried for like a month and a half to charge James Comey and Adam Schiff, and there's nothing. Like, you got nothing. And then he goes on to say, Lindsay, I don't know, Halligan is, I think, Lindsay is a real good lawyer and likes you a lot. We can't delay any longer. And this is where you kind of the gig's up. If you didn't know, because he addressed Pam personally in a fucking Truth Social tweet. Pam, I've reviewed over 30 statements. Anyway, he goes, we can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and credibility. They impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times. Actually, it's 34. You're convicted. Over nothing, he says. Justice must be done now. President DJT. That, according to Aaron Parnas, was supposed to be an email.
Unbelievable. So you accidentally sent it on Truth Social? Is this what
You got it. You got it. That is incredible.
At least he tried to keep it, out of the public light originally. But this is that kind of email, under any other circumstances, would have gotten a president impeached.
Yeah.
I mean, the president of
go
the United
after my
States,
fucking enemies. It's making me look bad. When are you going to fucking go after my enemies? By the way, there's no evidence, but fuck them. Fuck you. They got me. I want to get them back. Like, that was
that would have been Nixon's resignation day, under any other circumstances. But no, this case, hey, we keep going. And, as long as Pam does her job, everything will be fine. Well, that is the FiveStack today. Everyone should check out deanblundell.substack.com. Really great to be with you again, Dean, because you made me laugh today, which I really needed.
Yeah, we did. We all need it, don't we?
Yeah, it's necessary. It's necessary. And thanks to Professor Goggin for being here today, because that was good to hear from him. Good note of optimism from him, and we'll have him back on the show soon. And everyone should check out deanblundell.substack.com for that great research you put out around the right-wing crime.
Right-wing, it's all right-wing extremism. Like, the left wing doesn't do shit. It's all them. All of it. It all bears out. Go to my Substack. 50% off this month till the end of September, by the way. Just want you involved, want you to share, want you to be part of the community, the group. We're building a bigger community. We're building a bigger boat. So get in now if you can. Come and share the content. Become a free subscriber, paid subscriber. It all matters to us, and it all works together. Do the same thing with my friend Zev. You've got another Greatest Heist piece coming out. Is that what I understand?
I'm holding back on the next one, but the new one just came out last week, which is really interesting. It ties in a lot of stuff, which, people have focused on the mob history, the Russian mob history of Donald Trump. But it's also interesting that I focus on Bear Stearns in that story and Jeffrey Epstein. And also the fact that Jeffrey Epstein probably met Ghislaine Maxwell when she was a teenager, which lays on a whole new meaning to their relationship. So people can read in about that. Plus, I have my analysis of the case against Mr. Robinson in Utah, and how unlikely it is that he sent those text messages. So that's all at narrative.org.
Thanks, buddy. Great to see you again. As always, we'll be back at 3:00 tomorrow with the FiveStack. Stay true to yourself, everybody. Share what you can, subscribe where you can, and most importantly, hang in there. It's going to be okay. Terrence Goggins told us so. It's going to be fine. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye, bud.
Cheers.